but I find it brutally fascinating and kind of ironic that it took until COVID for you to get the internet. We're FaceTiming to do this interview to talk about your blockchain, which I barely know what the fuck that thing does. What was the process of building out that application? I guess from learning the bells and whistles, did you enlist some help, or was this all done the same way you're growing and your legacy sales was, by just getting your hands dirty and taking it step by step?
Well, that's a both end, right? So it's like, I could never do it all by myself, and I'm always going to need a hand, but then I'm going to get to take the initiative to step forward and do it. So like, did I follow anyone's lead? Absolutely not. Did I bring on the right team and become the dumbest one in the room? Yes. I definitely hired people that were way smarter and way more capable than I was at time and in the space. So the way it really started was like reaching out to who I knew could possibly or quite possibly build. And I went through, 2-3 month, interview process, found an amazing designer, and then started working on, the sort of the prototyping or the concept, and to build it from a prototyping, perspective. And then started wireframing afterwards, so that I could really start building team and building community around what it was going to look like, versus just telling people, which is what I was going to just show you. And normally on my Google Meets, it's really easy. Zoom sometimes can lock up because it takes so much bandwidth to run Zoom versus Google Meet. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely one of those things where, the process was a lot of what do I want to see, and then finding people who are capable of building it. And a lot of people's approaches, I mean, like, I don't want to openly talk shit on some of the bigger guys, especially after what just happened to Terra Luna. And like, you can see that, like, you can piss off the right people. So, like, you really can. And I don't want to. I want to work with the right people always. And shift their modeling, because mine's going to make more sense, or ours is going to make more sense. But the idea is that, even the bigger guys right now, they don't know, like, they don't know how to, I guess, ask the right questions and go out there past their comfort level. And their investors and their banks and people are just kind of telling them, like, no, don't go too far out, because it's going to fuck with the ROI, and for me, I paid for it all. So I'm kind of like, I don't mind going a little bit further out there, because I'm not beholden to investors. So that's one of the, like, I have to say, like, my biggest pieces of advice, if you're going to be in a startup, is bootstrap as long as humanly possible. Not just because it makes the most financial sense. It makes the most sense as a pioneer in whatever it is that you set out to do, right? It makes the most sense to get as far out there past the competition without the safety of someone else's money, because someone else is always going to be like, yeah, that's not how I want to spend my money. True.
And you're right, it doesn't matter whether you be a venture capitalist trying to create an app, or whether you're a cannabis grow, or even a podcast. You don't want somebody telling you how to run your business. But one thing I feel like we've started to see, especially in the cannabis scene, is we once had this ethos in the community or inside of the industry. And, like our friend Spencer Curson, who runs Standing Akimbo, one of our sponsors here, where he'd rather take a bath than sit here and just scout people to make them bottom dollar. But we're seeing that more companies, whether it be because they don't have the same mindset, or whether because they come from these business backgrounds, that are getting into the cannabis space, that don't have that same business mindset where it's all about the bottom dollar. They don't mind putting out shitty weed if it meant that it makes more money for them, and it's making it more competitive for the boutique businesses such as y'all's as well. But it also seems like that's more of a hyper situation in California than anywhere else. Whether it be the venture capitalists of, San Fran and the app builders out there, or, the grows in LA, like your cookies trying to take over all the small, time operations. Does it seem like when you cross from cannabis into IUX and app building, you're like, God damn it, it's the same shit. It's just on a different shoe? Or was it a reprieve from maybe running from those, I guess, competitors?
No, I mean, capitalism is the same, that's what's so much fun about this is it's like, because their model is so absolute, right? It's so like money, safety first. And, this really forces community building at a different level. So it really says like, okay, do you want to survive or do you want to thrive? Right. So surviving could be like being purchased by another company, becoming a sort of a commodities conglomerate, or like, like a pseudo cooperative, that ends up just sacrificing quality because at the end of the day, none of us were scale growers, like we were never commodities growers. We were growing like, 25, 50 plants the way we got started. And, when we scaled up to 10,000 square feet is when you start to see the massive quality drop, in California. So it's like, so platforms like this and, even small batch startups, that are taking information and decentralizing it and creating podcasts and creating media outlets and creating, payment platforms and creating like all of these different, these different things that were used to be able to go to one house and do it. And it's funny, I was just watching David Letterman interviewing Kim Kardashian, and they, she was talking about her Instagram success. And she was like, back in the day, I had to go on David Letterman to tell everybody what I was doing, Yeah. And like now I just fucking go on my page and I just post to my 133 million followers and I crush it. I make more money than I make an entire season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians off of one post. Like she's like, and that is the power of the decentralized economy. And that is the power that, that sort of these platforms are having. And the idea is that, that power is becoming more and more in the hands of the producers and the content makers, which is great. And so what I see is a lot of the vision of what we had as small producers actually coming to life. And I just see now, people like myself going like, wow, this like kind of light bulb moment. Like we get to harness this to continue our vision.
So,
and go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
So I mean, like, what kind of positive impacts like on these small farmers and this community have you already seen? Like, what are some of the benefits that are already starting to show?
Hope, as most, right? You're seeing a lot of people, like, oh wow, we could actually control some of our margins and some of our market, and we could create some of our own marketing, branding, and where we right now are going out into the world of distribution or retail, and they're really putting us in charge of marketing. But then think about what's available, like billboards, like events. These things are expensive for someone who's getting way overtaxed. The price of cannabis has fallen through the floor. Branding and marketing costs are just so fucking expensive, so it's like, and then on top of that, some distros are charging an additional 25%, so, where do we see survival, on a small batch? So when I say hope is it's like, we're coming on the scene saying like, here's your platform, promote it like Instagram and sell it like weed maps. And and like kind of mic drop over, here you guys go.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that concept. I hate to like put it like vaguely, but it's like you've kind of created, you mentioned a co-op, but like unionizing, working like together in this instance, because otherwise, it kind of makes it impossible, to either get your name out there in an oversaturated market or to compete with somebody that may shop specifically off of, THC percentage or price point. You can create differentiators by having people already navigating the app. That can be alone.
Yeah.
Itself alone is a differentiator, because it's something similar to what we pitch is, when we put people on good food or good wine, those are the same people that want good weed, and they're willing to travel or get a reservation or go to these specific places to get it. So I love that you've, decentralized it, but are centralized it and decentralized it at the same time. You've created it a one-stop shop while not making it the nearest shop. You can actually help out those in your community. That's fucking righteous.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we say about leveraging technology to have this sort of like associated co-op unionized model, right? It's like, we can have a global platform full of local producers, right? Like nobody looks at YouTube and goes like, oh, like that giant corporate conglomerate, or look at all those small little tiny individuals. It's somewhere like in this weird space between where like millions of creators can come together on this media conglomerate, but no one's hating on each other really. Like they're like, fuck, I'm a creator, and it's become this thing. So we get to do that for producers, and not just cannabis producers either. Producers of all goods and services. So like on the app, we have yoga, we have wellness, we have information. We have a place for you guys. Like, so we have like, I could turn around and pitch you guys the fact that like we have media and podcasts and, vlogs and all of those things, as well as coursework, curriculums, like all being streamed on the platform. So like, and it's a place for your podcast to live. You
have our attention, and we'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
But no, it seems like, it's a great concept, and you're doing good things, especially because, we've heard of how California is having to kind of mitigate the black market as, kind of like eating the apple from the opposite side. And so you got to find a way to make sure that your side of the apple stays clean, and everyone, because there is more than you mentioned, working together in the co-op kind of space. There's more than enough slices to go around, as long as you make sure that the pie is, properly cooked and available to the community. So I like where your head's at. My question is, obviously you are in kind of the birthplace of funky weed, progressive thought and great music. As the country becomes more legalized, places like Oklahoma, which we teased earlier, which is starting to see some of those kind of chaotic situations of an oversaturated market, prices of weed in the bottom of the barrel, and then Mississippi and Florida and other states like that. Will companies in those states and in those communities also be able to leverage and work inside of y'all's, I guess, app or anything along those lines? Will it be accessible to everyone across the country, despite the legalities of their states?
Yeah. So the information is free to go across state lines. The marketplace, which when you get a chance to see it, the marketplace is what we license as a separate software service, even though the face looks the same. So we call it like a franchise model, right? And so, let's just say if you have a McDonald's that like goes into like India and they don't serve cow, obviously, like they have the Maharaja Mac, which is a chicken Big Mac. And it's really, it's the Maharaja. It's crazy. You just walk into a McDonald's, you're like, well, I'm in a McDonald's, and they get the Maharaja Mac, which is the Big Mac, and it's a chicken patty, because they don't serve cow in India. So it's kind of like, so there'll be regulation, but it's still a McDonald's franchise. The regulations are going to sit in the state and allow for the cannabis companies to follow state guidelines to distribute cannabis. Right now, we can distribute hemp CBD anywhere in the world. So, where it's allowed to. So on the platform, you'll always have hemp CBD brands, right?
I love it. Awesome.
But let's just say we license to a company in Mississippi, and a lot of the southeastern United States are government run, like even like Virginia. Virginia's trying to